Somewhere inside a classified hangar, the United States is currently building its next generation fighter jet. An aircraft designed for a completely different kind of battlefield. It's so top secret, almost no one knows what it looks like. So we decided to build one ourselves. For decades, the US has dominated the skies. Aircraft like the F-22 and the F-35 were designed to be faster, stealthier and more capable than anything else on Earth. And for a long time, that worked. But the next potential conflict the US is preparing for won't look anything like the last one. This is the Indo-Pacific, a battlefield defined by distance. Thousands of kilometers of open ocean, fewer bases, longer missions, and a country like China that has spent decades preparing for exactly this kind of conflict as well. In a battlefield like this, speed and stealth alone aren't enough anymore. So the question is, how is the US preparing for this potential conflict? Let's find out. Right now, the US operates the biggest and most powerful air force in the world. At the center of it all are aircraft like the F-22 Raptor and the F-35 Lightning II. These fifth-generation fighter jets represent the absolute peak of modern air warfare. They're built around stealth and designed to evade radar and strike enemy targets before they're ever detected. In fact, from certain angles, these jets are basically invisible. The F-35, for example, is often described as having a radar signature about the size of a golf ball. And the F-22? Even smaller. From certain angles, it looks closer to something like a bumblebee. This makes them extremely difficult, if not almost impossible, to track. These jets also carry precision weapons that can eliminate targets from very far away with incredible accuracy. We're talking air-to-air missiles that can be fired at a target over the horizon or the pilot's field of view. These missiles typically have a range of over 40 kilometers. But the most advanced types can reach up to 160 kilometers. That's like shooting a target in Philadelphia all the way from New York City. But what really makes them powerful isn't just the aircraft itself, it's the system around it. Because these jets aren't fighting alone. They're supported by many other aircraft and systems that make them even stronger. You've got flying radar stations like the E-3, spotting threats from hundreds of kilometers away. Then there are refueling tankers like the KC-135, keeping fighters in the air for longer than they could on their own. And all of it is connected. Information is constantly flowing between the aircraft sensors and command centers. All of these combined create something far more powerful than any single jet. A fully integrated combat system. And for the past few decades, this system has worked almost perfectly. Most recently, both the F-22 and the F-35 have been deployed in the Middle East. These fighter jets were deployed to do exactly what they were designed to do: complete and total air superiority. In an environment such as the Middle East, the US and its allies generally have the advantage when it comes to air power. Iran's drone and missile systems are dangerous, but compared to stronger military powers like Russia or China, they're not as dense or integrated. It also helps that the US has multiple air bases around the Middle East, all located a few hundred to 1,000 kilometers from Iran. This is well within the combat radius of both the F-22 and the F-35, which means they can operate pretty much exactly the way they were designed to. But the next potential conflict the United States is preparing for isn't going to be like this at all. In fact, it's almost the complete opposite of the Middle East. This is the Indo-Pacific theater, and everything about this region completely changes the equation. Because unlike previous wars, this isn't a place filled with well-established bases and total air superiority. This is a theater defined by distance, lots of distance. Thousands of kilometers of open ocean separating air bases, carriers and potential conflict zones. But that's just one part of the problem. What makes this all even more difficult is this time the US is potentially going against an arguably equal superpower, China. More specifically, a conflict centered around a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan, something the US has been actively preparing for. For aircraft like the F-22 and the F-35, the vast distances of the Indo-Pacific are a serious problem. because despite how advanced they are, their range is still limited. Though it's possible to deploy these jets from forward US bases in South Korea, Japan or the Philippines, it's not exactly ideal. For years, China has been building layered and highly integrated air defense systems. And they've spent even more preparing for exactly this kind of fight. They have networks of long-range radar, surface-to-air missiles and electronic warfare capabilities designed specifically to detect, track and engage stealth aircraft. An attack from any of these forward bases is definitely possible, but it will likely come at a significant cost, both human and economic. So to operate safely and effectively in a battlefield like this, fighter jets would need to rely heavily on aerial refueling. And that's where another weakness appears: refueling tankers. These massive aircraft are essential to extending the reach of US fighters, but they're also slow, unstealthy and extremely vulnerable. In a high-end conflict, they become some of the most valuable and easiest targets in the sky. And it's not just the environment that's different. China now has its own 5th-generation fighters, aircraft like the J-20 and the J-35. The tactic of gaining quick and total air superiority will be way more difficult considering the enemy has similarly capable aircraft. So in a scenario like this, the advantages the US relied on for decades start to fall apart, which led to a critical realization. If the current system can't survive in this potential conflict, then something entirely new has to take its place. And that's exactly what the United States is currently building. It's not just a better fighter jet, but an entirely new approach to air warfare itself. A system built around next-generation jets and autonomous drones. This is the Next Generation Air Dominance Program. Instead of relying on a single, extremely capable aircraft, everything is designed to work as a system. At the core of that system is the next-generation manned aircraft. This is the Boeing F-47. Well, not exactly. Here's the thing. Boeing won the contract to build it back in March 2025.
Is going to be awarding the contract for the Next Generation Air Dominance Platform to Boeing.
But the real design is actually still highly classified. So no one outside a small circle actually knows what this jet looks like. So we try to come up with our own design based on what the public already knows. This is what we think it could look like. Oh, and about that name?
It's a beautiful number, F-47.
When Trump announced it, he called 47 a beautiful number. The Air Force then said it honors the World War II era P-47 Thunderbolt, the founding year of the Air Force in 1947 and the 47th president. Though apparently Trump announced the name without telling the Air Force first, and they had to scramble to put that explanation together afterwards. Anyway, we designed it as a large, long-range stealth aircraft built around a flying wing design. It has no vertical stabilizer and its overall shape is optimized to minimize radar detection from every angle. We chose this design for a reason, because everything we know so far points in the same direction. More range, more stealth, and everything hidden inside the aircraft. Removing the vertical stabilizers alone makes a huge difference. It cuts down the radar signature, similar to what you see on something like the B-2 bomber. And just like with most stealth aircraft, we buried the F-47's engines deep inside the fuselage so they barely be detected by radar. The same idea goes for the weapon base. Instead of missiles hanging from the outside, all weapons will be located inside the fuselage, and they will only be opened when necessary. Another interesting design choice we added is these tiny wing-like structures in the front. These are called canards. This wing configuration is a bit controversial when it comes to stealth aircraft, because traditionally adding canards can actually increase radar visibility. They create additional edges and surfaces that can reflect radar waves back to the source. But there's a reason they're still being considered. They offer a major advantage in control and maneuverability, especially for an aircraft that doesn't have a vertical stabilizer. So in a design like this, that trade-off might be worth it. And if we were to believe the infographic posted by the US Air Force Chief of Staff, the F-47 is going to be a lot stealthier compared to the F-22. They've even labeled it as Stealth++, well, whatever that means. But beyond stealth, there's another area where it's expected to completely change the game: range. While exact numbers are classified, that same infographic says the F-47 could have a combat radius of more than 1,000 nautical miles, or roughly 1,850 kilometers. A number that's more appropriate for the Indo-Pacific theater. Though even at that range, an F-47 from Guam still couldn't reach Taiwan and return without refueling. But the difference is, tankers could now stay much farther back, well out of range of China's missiles. That alone already changes a lot, which brings us to arguably the most important part. Because the F-47 isn't meant to fight alone. You've probably been wondering what these smaller aircraft around the F-47 are. These are an entirely new class of systems known as Collaborative Combat Aircraft, or CCAs. They are unmanned drones, designed to fly alongside the F-47, acting as supporting units. Some of these drones would act as scouts, flying far ahead of the main aircraft, detecting enemy radar systems, tracking targets, and feeding real-time data back to the pilot. Others could be armed, carrying missiles or precision-guided munitions, effectively increasing the firepower of a single F-47 several times over. And then there are drones designed purely to absorb risk, flying into heavily defended areas, triggering enemy radars, or even drawing fire away from the main aircraft. This shift toward drones isn't something new. We're already seeing it play out in real wars today. In Ukraine, drones have become one of the most dominant weapons on the battlefield. Cheap, mass-produced systems are now being used to destroy tanks, track movements, and carry out precision strikes. Often costing just a few $100 or $1,000 while taking out equipment worth millions. And that completely changes the economics of warfare. In a traditional system, losing a fighter jet is devastating. But with drones, that equation changes completely. Because now you can afford to take risks. You can send unmanned systems into the most dangerous parts of the battlefield without putting human lives on the line. And by that, you can overwhelm the enemy. There's even talk that the F-47 could be the last manned fighter jet ever built. As AI improves and autonomous systems become more reliable, the role of the human pilot starts to change. From directly flying the aircraft to becoming a mission commander overseeing an entire network of machines. This is what the US Air Force is already trying to do. Full autonomy in combat is still heavily debated. But the direction is pretty clear. Warfare is shifting towards systems that are faster, more distributed, and less reliant on humans in the most dangerous areas. And while it might sound like science fiction, it's already happening. Trump himself confirmed during an announcement that an experimental version had already been flying secretly for nearly 5 years. But the details are still highly classified. The US Air Force has been quietly testing these technologies for years, slowly shaping what the system could become, with the first test flight expected in 2028 and service entry before the end of the decade. So what do you think about the 6th generation fighter jet? Do you think humans will still be at the center of air combat in the future? And what would you change about our design? Let me know in the comments down below. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.